name is Caldown669 and welcome back to another video. Today in this one it's going to be another deck profile video, and in this one it's going to be my deck profile on Maliss Fiendsmith post-Supreme Darkness, but more of what I played for YCS Orlando. Like I just said, I did take this to YCS Orlando and I actually did pretty well with it. I made it to day 2 of the YCS. Unfortunately, didn't do as good as I want to do in day 2. Like I went 7-2 on the first day, so X2 first day, and then went 1-2 on day 2, which is unfortunate. But I did make day 2, and I did really like this version of the deck. But the reason why I'm making a deck profile on this is just because, well, one, it's been a little bit since I've done a Maliss deck profile. The last time I did one was more of the pure version, but was pre-Supreme Darkness. But number 2 is kind of explain to you why I went with the Fiendsmith route compared to maybe just going more for a pure version route. So this is going to be a little bit more in-depth. I'm going to go explain why I chose Fiendsmith, explain some of the ratios with the deck, because there are some weird ratios in this deck, especially once we get into non-engine. And then obviously we'll go to the deck and extra deck, and then at the more towards the end of the video I'll kind of explain my matchups throughout the entire YCS. So without further ado, let's get straight into the deck profile, shall we? So we'll start off with the Maliss engine first. So we'll start off with their monsters. We're playing 3 Dormouse, 3 White Rabbit, and 2 Chessy Cat. So I mean, this is pretty standard with pretty much any Maliss list is pretty much standard. Maybe you'll see this at maybe 3, and if you're playing more of a pure version, and maybe some people might be playing it at 1. I think 2 is pretty much the standard though. But yeah, everything else is pretty standard. Dormouse is the best one you want to draw, so you want to play 3 of this. White Rabbit, even though it's not necessarily the one you want to start with, this can still get you to combo by itself, so it's still not that bad to draw. But Chessy Cat is the one where you have to draw it with another Maliss name for you to go combo with it, so that's the reason why you're not kind of maxing out on the Chessy, because you want it in the deck, but you don't want to see it in your hand kind of thing. But yeah, pretty standard ratio when it comes to Maliss without a doubt. When I'll explain a little bit more in the side deck, but for like game 2s and game 3s, if I knew I was going to second, I sometimes put White Rabbit down to 2, but I'll explain more of that once I get into the side deck portion of the deck. So that is the monster lineup. One more monster we're playing, and I consider it a Maliss monster, is Dotscaper as well. This is just a part of your typical Maliss combo. It sucks to draw, which is sucks about it, but you do need it for the red ransom, just so you have another Cyberus you can banish that's not a Maliss name that can special itself back to the field. So yeah, even though it's not a Maliss name, it's pretty much an honorable Maliss name for the deck for sure. Now on to the spell traps for Maliss. We are playing 3 Maliss in Underground, 1 Gold Sarcophagus, and 1 Terraforming. For the spells, that's pretty much it. I'm not playing Allure, Darkness. I'm not playing Cyanide Mining. I think the Allure maybe, like if you're playing more of the pure version, could be correct. But the reason why I chose not to play it is because I'm playing the Fiendsmith stuff, and this Fiendsmith stuff does require a little bit more of your deck, so I couldn't really play the Allure of Darkness, but this was pretty much fine. Obviously, Maliss in Underground is just an extender that gets you to one of your names, which is cool. Gold Sark is kind of the same thing. It can banish any of your top guys here, even the Dotscaper in certain situations, just so you can get a body. And then Terraforming is just to search for the Maliss in Underground. And then now for the traps for Maliss, again, pretty standard stuff here is 1 TB11, 1 GC06, and 1 MTB 07. Again, just pretty standard ratios. Again, like you don't need to be playing more than 1 of each trap. There's really no point. It's nice to see them, but you don't really want to brick on the traps for sure. But that is pretty much it for the Maliss engine. So pretty big engine. I think if I'm not mistaken, it was 9. Oh, I'm trying to do math in my head. 14, 17 Maliss technical engines, because the trap is engine, even though you don't necessarily want to draw it, that technically is engine. But again, that was pretty standard ratios. That's pretty much in every Maliss list that you're going to see. Those are pretty much the standard ratios. Now on to the Fiendsmith portion of the deck here. So we're playing 2 Engraver, 1 Lacrimon, 1 Lurie, my bad, let me just get that like that, 2 Fiendsmith Track, and a Fiendsmith in Paradise. So this is where I kind of explain why I chose to go with the Fiendsmith variant of the deck compared to just maybe just more of a pure version of the deck. And is, well, Abaku in the, or Abao, I think is what it's called. Sorry, I just call it Abaku just because I'm from Albuquerque and our initials was ABQ. It's just a little joke we can do in the 505. But Abao is the reason why. Abao needs a fiend to make into the Fiendsmith stuff, or needs a fiend to go into. So if I was like, if I'm going to commit to a fiend to make the Abao, I might as well play the best fiend generic support we have ever had, and that is the Fiendsmith stuff. Also, I also wanted to play Fiendsmith one last time because I felt like YCS Orlando was pretty much the last time I'll probably be able to play with the Fiendsmith stuff because maybe it'll be legal for Vegas, but this is pretty much going to get hit in the next list. This is pretty much a guaranteed. We don't know how they're going to hit it, but this is pretty much going to be on the chopping block when it comes to the ban list next. So I felt like this was pretty much the last time I can play Fiendsmith at full power, so I might as well play it for this event as well. But the ratios might seem a little weird. I'm only on 2 Engraver. It was weird. I was playing 3 at one point, but in testing, it turns out like maybe people might be going towards more of main deck Droll. Now, I think I ended up being incorrect in testing, but that was kind of the idea. Is like, I think a lot of people might shift to Droll because a lot of people were trying to expect the Rizal matchup in this YCS. So if a lot of people are going to shift to main deck Droll, you probably want to cut less Engravers and put more track in, just so you can play around that Droll, because the track can play around Droll, but the Engraver does not. Even though the deck doesn't necessarily die to Droll anyways, you still want to kind of have this engine just in case. But we're also using the Fiendsmith for a different reason. We're not using it as its typical make, DDD High King Caesar, or try to make Desiree with a sequence or something like that. That's not what I'm using this Fiendsmith stuff for. I'm just using it as extenders. I'm just using it as just bodies I can get onto the field that acts as extenders, and then can just help you like play through hand traps and stuff like that. Obviously, the Lacrima and Paradise are in here just so it can give an interruption during your opponent's turn as well. And the reason why I treat it as just extenders is because most or all the Malice names, if you trigger their banish effect, they lock you into link monsters. So you can't really commit to the Necroquip and the DDD and the Desiree kind of lines if you're going to lead with your Malice stuff first, which a lot of the time when in testing, I wanted to lead with the Malice stuff first so I can get hand trapped, or like if I get nibbed, I can save the Engraver as my next push after that. So that's the reason why maybe the ratios are a little weird, just because, again, I'm not focusing on trying to make the Desiree, DDD, or Necroquip or anything like that. I'm just using him as just bodies, and then the Lacrima and Paradise as a more of another interruption they have to play through during their turn as well. So it's a weird way to play the deck, because you do want, like, every time, like, you want to try to make those cards like the DDD and stuff, but for Malice specifically, that's not how you can play the Fiendsmith stuff. You just have to use the Fiendsmith stuff as extenders that help you get into an Abaku for sure. So that is it for the Fiendsmith stuff there. Now on to the non-engine that we are playing. So we have a lot of them actually. So we're playing 3 Ash Blossom Enjoy Spring, 3 Droll in Lockbird, 2 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Magna, 1 Druis, and then for spell traps that we're playing the 3 Forbidden Droplet, 2 Triple Tactic Talents, and of course the 3 Infinite Impermanent. So kind of a lot of non-engine considering I'm playing Malice and Fiendsmith, but ended up fitting it a lot. And to be fair, I think I kind of like this all day. I think the only thing I was probably mistaken going into this event was the Droll in the main deck, just because, again, when I was testing, I was more prepared to verse something like a Rizal, like Fiendsmith, or a Rizal Mitsuragi, which was more of the problem in testing. So I was like, if those are going to be the problem with the deck, I'm going to main deck the Droll and Lockbird, because Droll is kind of a check against that deck. It makes it where they just make a Detonator pass, which you have other cards for it to deal with, especially if you're playing the Fiendsmith stuff, because that's going to force out a lot of pops as well, especially in games 1s where they don't know what you're playing. You can go lead with the Fiendsmith stuff, and they have to expect something like a Chaos Angel to come out as well. But the problem with Droll is I only versed 3 Rizals the entire tournament. I versed 6 Malice in the tournament, which, if you don't know, Droll doesn't do shit against Malice. So this card was really bad into the Malice matchup. So maybe I should have sided it instead. I don't think I regret it, just because I prefer to have the Droll in for the Rizal matchup so I can try to help win this game 1s, because when I was every time I try to play with Maliss, I always want to try to win the games ones, because you know game twos and game threes, Lanciers are going to be put in, the Sanctums are going to be put in. So you have to be expecting for you to at least lose one of those games, just because Lancey is going to be a problem. So you want to try to win a lot of game ones when it's a little bit more advantageous to you, because they're not on the Lancey in the main deck, so you don't have to worry about that floodgate fucking you up. So that's the reason why I chose to put Droll in the main, just so if I versed the Rizal matchup, I had a way to Droll them, and then they only make it on the Detonator, which is a beatable Enfield compared to what we're playing. So yeah, that's kind of the reason why. But again, I versed a lot more Maliss than I versed Rizal, so it was a little bit of a mistake to put the Drolls in. Ash, Droplet, Talents, Imperms, I think those are pretty standard. I love them all day. Droplet was insane. Ash was insane. I didn't see Talents that much, but every time I did see Talents, it was like the best card in the deck. Maybe I do put it to 3, but I'm just going to keep it to 2 for now. The other weird ratio is the 2 Nibiru and then 1 of each Bestial. The reason why I chose to play a little bit less Nibiru, I still wanted it in the deck, but the reason why I chose to only play it at 2 is because it wasn't as impactful as I was wanting it to be. Against, like, you know, Mitsuragi Rizal is not the greatest in the world. You have to draw it with another hand trap. So by itself, it doesn't really do anything. Against Maliss, again, a lot of the Maliss players are playing. They make it where they can play through Nibiru. Even though Nibiru somewhat hurts them, they can still make it where they can play through Nibiru and on a field and still be a problem, right? So the Nibiru wasn't as good against the Maliss. So I was like, if Nib is not going to be as good, I'm going to cut it down to 2. I still wanted it, because if I drew Nib with like any other hand trap, still pretty good. But I put it down to 2. And maybe, considering how the tournament went, maybe I cut it, because again, Nibiru just wasn't as impactful as I wanted it to be. So this is maybe something I would change to try to make it where I can not play Nibiru, just because Nibiru wasn't as impactful as I wanted it to be. And then I played one of just only 2 Bestials, 1 Magnum, 1 Druid. This is the one mistake with the deck I saw, was I probably should have been on more Bestials. I, for some reason, put it in my head probably like a week or 2 before the YCS actually happened, that maybe the Bestials wasn't as good as I thought it was, just because the Mitsuragi stuff wasn't as... The Bestials didn't do as much against that deck. But a lot of people chose to play Fiendsmith instead, so that was kind of the mistake. A lot of people weren't on the Mitsuragi stuff. They were just more on the Fiendsmith Rizal stuff, making it where the Bestials were a lot more impactful. So something like maybe cutting the Nibiru and putting in more Bestials might have been more correct in that scenario. But overall, the hand trap lineup wasn't as bad. Like, I might have given it just some shit now, but I kind of enjoyed it all day. I think the only thing I would change is maybe take out Nib and put in more Bestials, because the Bestials also act as extenders for you as well. So they bridge the gap of being a hand trap, but also being extenders for your deck as well. So this is probably the only mistake. I'd probably play more Bestials in that slot instead. So that is it for the non-engine. Obviously, I can't play something like an Impulse or Shifter in the main deck, because we're playing the Fiendsmith stuff. So obviously Shifter doesn't do shit with the Fiendsmith stuff. Or like, the Fiendsmith stuff doesn't do anything under Shifter. And then Impulse makes it where you can't activate the Fiendsmith stuff. So that was kind of like the downside of playing the Fiendsmith stuff, is you couldn't play that. Now, to be fair, I don't like Shifter in the first place anyway, so I'm perfectly fine with not playing Shifter. I think Shifter actually isn't as good as people think it is, just because the top 2 decks don't really care about it. Yeah, sure, Rizal doesn't go full combo, but like, the problem with Shifter in Maliss, like, I've developed a lot of lines where I can play around like Nibiru and stuff, because I'm keeping graveyard effects live, making it where if they do nib me, I can activate Fill Spell, banish a name, and keep going. But under Shifter, you can't really do that, because Shifter makes it where everything is kind of you want everything to come back, and it makes it hard to play around the Nibiru. I know, a little bit of a weird thing for me, but Shifter just wasn't as good. Oh my god, just dropped my camera. Sorry, my bad. Let me fix that. But yeah, Shifter I just don't think was as good as people thought. And every time I versed a Maliss player, they shifted me. I'm like, okay, I might be on Fiendsmith, but I'm still on Maliss. I can still do combos under Shifter, right? And a lot of people were on the Impulse. I didn't have to worry about Nibiru either, because if you're playing Impulse, you're not going to be playing Nibiru in your deck. But now onto the extra deck. Sorry about that little rant there. We'll start off with the Fiendsmith stuff. 1 Rec, 1 Moon, and 1 Desiree. That is all I'm playing, like I just explained with the Fiendsmith portion of the video. This is all I really necessarily need, is just these 3 cards. I don't need Sequence. I don't need Desiree, or I don't need Sequence. I don't need Necroquip. I don't need DDD. Because, again, I'm using Fiendsmith just as more of an extenders then using it as like its own little thing to set up on negation and stuff like that. So obviously these two make sense because Moon can get you into Wreck, and then Wreck gets you into the Fiendsmith stuff. But the Desiree's in here because one, the side deck, you'll see why in just 1 second with the side deck. But number two is for the Fiendsmith and Paradise as well, just to dump this off Fiendsmith and Paradise, makes your Paradise an interruption as well. So pretty standard stuff when it comes to that. But yeah, that's all I'm playing when it comes to the Fiendsmith extra deck. Now on to the rest of the extra deck. We'll start off with the Link 1s. I'm just playing Link Decoder and Link Spider. No Ling Rebo here. Again, we have a little bit of a tighter extra deck since we are playing the Fiendsmith stuff. So we can't play the Ling Rebo. But to be fair, never really missed Ling Rebo any time. Like, Ling Rebo was never necessary for the deck in the first place. It's always cool in like the mirror match, making it where you can turn off a trap. But it wasn't necessary for me. So I was like, okay, I never really make Ling Rebo anyways. And I never missed it in the tournament. So like, it was perfectly fine for me not to play the Ling Rebo. But these are the only Link 1s I'm playing. Link Decoder makes sense. It's just a part of the combo. And then Link Spider is, if you get Nibiru, you can make a Link Spider with the Nibiru token and then plus any other body. Either get you into a Splash Mage if it's a Cyberse, but any other body can help you make a Moon as well if you want to go for the Fiendsmith stuff instead. So that is it for the Link 1s that I'm playing. Now on to the Link 2s. So I'm playing 1 IP, 1 SP, 1 Splash Mage, and 1 Haggard Lizardo. So these are the Link 2s that are playing. I think IP, it was one of those things, I think with the last Maliss list, I wasn't playing it. But the reason why I'm playing it with this is because Meowth is in the format, and Fool Ross is also in the format. So it makes it where if you get Charmied, at least you can just make an IP and kind of just pass on that and be perfectly fine, because IP plus any body is still SP, and SP is still somewhat of an asshole, right? So this is perfectly fine to play. SP is a bridge as well for this deck, can either be an interruption for your opponent, or it can act as an extender, making SP banish a name from your graveyard, and then continue to do combo, which is pretty nice as well with the SP. So that's a nice bridge you can do as well. Splash Mage seems a little weird to be in the deck because I'm playing Fiendsmith, so you don't really want to be locked into Cyberse, but to be fair, I'm perfectly fine with keeping this in the deck. I'm glad I did keep it in because there was some lines where I'm like, okay, I just need a Link 2 to bring back, and then Splash Mage always just came up. This is always your last resort Link 2 that you use for extension play, but you do want to have it in the deck for sure. And then the Haggard Lizardos also makes sense just because it banishes a Malice name for cost, makes it where you can get into a free Link 3 with just 2 bodies, which is cool as well. But pretty self-explanatory with the Link 2s. I think this is pretty much standard in pretty much every Malice list that we're going to see, maybe with the exception of IP, but I think still IP is going to be in most lists as well. Now on to the Link 3s. We are playing one of each name. Well, 1 Heart Cryptor, 1 white Binder, and then 1 Red Ransom. Again, nothing I would really change. Maybe we play a second White Binder because White Binder is really, really good, but the extra deck is just a little bit too tight for that. But yeah, these are pretty standard stuff. There, Red Ransom is for combo. White Binder is the best Link 3 you want to play. That's why I consider playing 2 of it. And then the Heart Cryptor is just kind of help you OTK. That's why I usually used it for. I never used it as like an interruption piece going first. I just used it as okay, this is just my OTK tool going second. Even though I am playing Access Code, this was just another option I could be doing as well. But this is pretty standard stuff that doesn't really need that much of an explanation on why it's in the deck. Now on to the Link 4s that we're playing. We are playing 3. We are playing 1 Nightmare Griffin, 1 Abaku, and then the 1 Access Code Talker. So these are the Link 4s I chose to go with. Access Code, again, a little bit self-explanatory. It's Access Code. You're a Cyberse deck, so you don't really care. You have a lot of links in your graveyard as well, but being able to banish the Malice names in the graveyard makes it where they can come back as well. So this is pretty much an OTK tool that helps you get bodies back. So Access Code, very, very good. Do not cut this card whatsoever. But the Griffin and Abaku. So this is pretty much the line that you're going for with Malice, especially with this version of Malice, is going for Nightmare Griffin plus Abaku. If you end on this end field, it is super hard for them to break this end field because they pretty much have to open up the stones for them to actually break through the end field, because it makes it where their special summon monsters can't use their effects, and then Abaku can pretty much either be a destruction, discard a card, destroy 1 card, or a special summon from the graveyard. So that utility is really, really good. So the end fields I usually ended up going for was an IP Griffin Abaku plays. So even if they had like an imperm for like the Griffin or something like that, I can still go IP Link off the Griffin into something like an SP Little Knight, and then Abaku bring back the Nightmare Griffin, and they have to out Griffin once again. So it makes it where this end field is nearly just unstoppable to break. You do have to open up pretty much the stones to beat this Enfield, and this Enfield is pretty good. And this is without considering that you probably have hand traps on top, you have the white binder in graveyard to still get interruption from there, and you still have the Fiendsmith stuff in graveyard as well. So it's just a lot of interruptions that makes it where your turn 1 Enfield is pretty much impossible to play. But this was, honestly, Griffin should be a banned card, to be fair. Griffin is just so dumb. The fact that this card exists, I wouldn't be surprised if it gets banned, but it is a lot more outable. I think a lot of people are complaining about this card, and I do understand why, but this card is a lot more outable than you think it is. Like, an Imperm Bestial technically beats this Enfield, but it's just what else they end on that makes it a problem. But Abiq is also just a fucking insane card, especially that standby effect where you get to draw a shit ton. Never came up for me because a lot of the time they conceded before I even got that chance to do so. But yeah, very good stuff. And that is it for the extra deck there. So now let's go into the side deck, shall we? Let me take it out of my deck box. I forgot to take it out of my deck box. So the side deck, I think this is the one thing I probably could have made better. So we are playing 3 Molchome Pirellia. This is, again, more for that Mitsuragi Rizal deck. So this is like, if I verse that matchup, at least I have the Pirellias to put in against any... Again, I was more prepared for the Rizal matchup. So this is why I have the Pirellia in the side deck. But, again, I versed a lot of Maliss. I versed more Maliss than I versed Rizal in the tournament. So this wasn't as good, because obviously this card is pretty bad against Rizal, or against Maliss, because... Pretty much, if they draw a field spell, they can go full combo without giving you a draw, which is fucking dumb to think about. But pretty good card against the Rizal matchup, but I probably would cut it in the future. But it really wasn't as good. But I'm not a fan of the Charmies. I'm not playing Furos, but that's because I don't own Furalos. So if you have a Furalos, maybe you put that in over like Droll and Lockbird or something like that. But I don't own Furaloses. But to be fair, I've never really missed it because I'm still winning games without it. So that's the reason why I'm not a fan of the Charmies, but like, there are player roundables. I would prefer just other hand traps instead. We're playing the 3 Lantia because, well, it's Lantia, so if you verse the mirror match, this is just a check in the mirror match. But it's because we're also playing 3 Crossout Designator in the side deck as well. I think this is pretty much a non-negotiable piece. You have to play Lantia because of the mirror match, but you also have to play Crossout because you need to stop the Lantia as well. So that's the kind of unfortunate part with Maliss. You have to stop this card exactly. But in the mirror match, Crossout is very insane in the mirror match, because being able to hit their traps off of this is fucking insane. Makes it where they just can't activate their cards, or it makes it where you can stop one of their interactions, which is really good. So I do like this in the mirror match as well. And oh my god, my dogs are freaking out over something. Okay, but continuing on, the rest of the side deck, I was playing 2 XYZ Encore, which this was the last second edition. Again, I wanted to beat the Rizal matchup just because I thought Rizal was just going to be a lot more represented. So I put 2 Encore in because this is a card that just they can't respond to, especially against the Mitsuragi version of the deck. They can't trap negate this, so it just gets rid of the detonator. And honestly, a lot of the time, the reason why I'm losing to the Rizal deck is because of Detonator. So this being able to out the Detonator and shuffle it back to the extra deck is really good. It does suck that they summon the materials back and they can get searches off of it, but I would take that downside just to make sure I don't have to deal with the Detonator. But I also was playing 2 Metaltronus. So this is something that exploded over the weekend. A lot of people were playing Metaltronus. Now, I identified that Metaltronus was good in this next format, but I decided there were some people that were main decking this card, and halfway through the tournament, I was like, I probably should be main decking this card as well, because Metaltronus is fucking insane. This card is really good. I played this like last year at a regional in UBell, and so I already know like the prime example of this card being good, but it's fucking actually kind of insane, this format. Against the mirror match, it's fucking insane. Against any Fiendsmith variant, it's also insane because you're playing the Desiree, but Abiq also fills the requirement for that as well. And then against the Rizal matchup, you can target the Detonator, special summon Nib, which is cool as well. But the reason why I cut it down 2 and put the Encores in, I was initially just playing 3 Metaltronus, no Encore, was because if the Rizal matchup, if they end on Duo Drive, this actually fucks up the math with Metaltronus. Now, a lot of people, to get around that, was just playing Detonator in their extra deck, so they just didn't have to worry about that, which is cool, but obviously I'm playing Fiendsmith, so I don't have the extra deck to do that. So I cut this down to 2 just on my, okay, I have the Encores, but I also have Metaltronus just in case they don't make duo drive, because the duo drive does fuck up the math with Metaltronus, but I still think Metaltronus is very, very insane. Again, a lot of people were main decking it, and I think I probably would have main decked it as well. This card was fucking just insane. Every time I saw it, I'm like, oh my god, I'm just in a good position, right? One Called by the Grave. Again, this is just more for the Lancia. I'm not main decking it because in the main deck, I don't necessarily care about any card in the main deck, like maybe Fuwalos, but I have 6 outs with 3 Ash and 3 Droll to stop that. So I decided just to side deck it instead. And then the last card for the side deck, which is a stupid mistake I made, was Sky Crisis. I put the Sky Crisis in the extra deck, again, more for the Rizal matchup, but it was bad all day. Like, even against the Rizal matches I versed, I was like, I don't even want to side this in, because a lot of the Rizal players are on, they're not on Pier, they're on different versions of the deck. They're on Fiendsmith, they're on Mitsuragi and stuff like that. So the Sky Crisis doesn't necessarily check that much, but with Malice as well, if you try to crack a field, if you ever activate a Malice name in the Banish, you immediately get locked out of the Sky Crisis. So this card wasn't that good. I actually probably would take it out of the deck. It's not that good. I just put it in just so I had another out to the Rizal matchup, but yeah, Sky Crisis just wasn't that good ever. Never really wanted to side it in ever throughout the tournament. I did put it in, like I would take out Griffin because Griffin is not that good going second. So I would put it in, but like I would never really want to make it. So yeah, this card probably will be cut in the future for sure. So that is it for the deck. So again, a little bit like, even though there are some things I probably would change with the deck, overall I did enjoy the deck and I did do good with the deck as well. I made it to day 2 and stuff like that. So like, it's not like I did terrible or anything. So like, even the day 2 stuff, it wasn't because the deck failed me. It's because I kind of just made stupid decisions and like misplayed. That's what costed me, right? So my matchups, I'll quickly go over it. I can see we're 26 minutes. We've been explaining a lot with this, but my matchups: round 1, I versed the Malice mirror match and I lost. I think the only mistake I did there was I did not concede game 1. I should have just blind conceded game 1. Because the idea was going in with this deck was if I ever verse, like if I go second and like the board is just unbeatable, I should just concede and then go into game 2 to make sure they maybe don't put in the Lancias, correct? But the problem with doing that is if you blind concede, that could be a tell of them, like, okay, this might be a Malice player, because if they're blind conceding, they probably don't want me to see their cards. So that was kind of the thing I kind of saw all day, was like, if they're blind conceding, it's probably a Malice player that just doesn't want you to know that they're on Malice. But the cool thing about the Fiendsmith stuff is you can go activate Fiendsmith stuff, kind of play with your Fiendsmith stuff, then concede. Because a lot of people probably won't be putting in the Lancia because they saw the Fiendsmith stuff, because of, like, yes, there was some talk about Fiendsmith Malice, but if they do see the Fiendsmith stuff, they'll probably go, okay, I'm not going to side in the Lancias just in case it's something like Rizal Fiendsmith or something like that. So that was kind of the idea, is I play with the Fiendsmith stuff and then concede. That's what I did in round 1. But the thing is the Fiendsmith stuff forced out 2 interruptions, and I still had a body on field, and I kind of had the hand to break it, so I decided to play. But the problem, the thing I should have identified, is I could have broke the field, which I did, but I couldn't kill him, and he was just going to kill me on the crackback because I didn't really have any hand traps. I think I had like 3 dead normal summons in my hand. I think it was like Lacrima, Chessy Cat, Dormouse, and White Rabbit, which is not good to see going second. So you just have, like, I normal summon Dormouse, which is good, but the other 3 cards are just dead in my hand, right? So that's kind of the unfortunate part about it. And then the Chessy Cat I activated to try to draw cards, he negated. So, like, I probably should have just blind conceded, just because, like, yes, I could break the field, but I just couldn't kill him through it, and he was going to kill me on the crackback anyway. So I think that was my mistake, because in game 2, I drew just, like, the worst hand. It was, like, 3 Dormouse, Chessy Cat, and a Fiendsmith in Paradise, and he activated Lancia. I'm like, okay, I just lose this game. So that was unfortunate. So I think my only mistake there is I should have just blind conceded. Game 1, should have just recognized my hand just wasn't good enough anyways. Round 2, I versed Tempai Fiendsmith, and I won, I think, a 2-1. I think it was 2-1. Pretty much I won the die roll, did full combo both game 1 and game 3. And I think I even had cross out for the Lancia in game 3, so it was perfectly fine. Round 3, I versed Rizal. Was it Rizal? I feel like no. It was Malice. I versed Malice and I 2-0'd it because he game 1 I went first and set up a combo, and then game 2 he just bricked really, really bad. So I 2-0'd the Maliss player round 3. Round 4, I versed Fiendsmith Rizel. Kind of the same thing as round 2. I won the die roll, did full combo game 1, and then did full combo game 3. I nearly broke his game 2 field, but I think he top decked into Lancia, or like he had Lancia on top of everything. But I broke his field with just like a Sky Crisis because he didn't end on that impressive of a board. So I broke the field with a Sky Crisis. Couldn't kill me. I was like, okay, if he doesn't have a second Lancia, I win. But he had the second Lancia game 2. And then game 3, I just went full combo. Anyways, round 5, I versed another Maliss player. And then game Shifter. He shifted me game 1. I kind of did my combo, but he had a really better hand than I did. I think I had some Fiendsmith cards in hand that obviously don't do anything under Shifter. So even though I set up on the field, he just cracked the field and OTK'd me through the Shifter because I didn't really draw hand. I think I drew Droplet and Droll, which doesn't do anything under Shifter. So that was kind of the unfortunate part. Game 2, I won the game like full handily, like full combo plus Lancia on top of everything. And then game 3, he shifted me, but my hand wasn't that great in the first place. So he like ended on a SP Cryptor, but my hand was like Dotscaper. Like I had to normal summon Dotscaper just so I can play, and then Metal Tronus into a Dormouse, and then link off the Dormouse just so I can get into a name. But his last hand trap being an Impulse is what fucked it up because it banished the Dormouse. Dormouse effect, he impulsed the Dormouse. I'm like, okay, I just lose unfortunately because it just wasn't that great of a hand. And then after that, I went on. I won the rest of day 2. I think I versed Crystron. After that, beat Crystron, and then I versed Maliss again, which I beat. Then I versed Maliss again, which I beat. And then last round of day 1, I versed Pure Rizel, which I actually 2-0'd as well. And then going into day 2, I versed Fiendsmith or I think it was just Fiendsmith Castria is what I versed round 1, beat it 2-1. So I was 8-2 at that point. I'm like, 2 more rounds to go. That's all I need to do. 2 more rounds. If I win the next 2, I can top. But I versed Maliss again in the second to final round, and this is where I fucked up. I won the die roll, went to go first, did my typical thing, but he activated Furos on the white binder effect on field. Now, the problem with that is I had Ash, so I could have Ashed the Furos, but I got so focused on why would he Furos there that I could have just, because I was like, oh, now I can change my set. So I set GC06 instead of setting TB11. Because a lot of people should wait for the White Rabbit to set first. Make sure they set TB11, then activate Furos. And I know it's pretty bad, but it forces out the TB11 anyways, which is fine with you. But I understand like where he did it. But I think I just got too focused on like, okay, now I can change my trap on what I set, that I forgot I just had Ash in hand. So I could have probably actually won game 1 if I just asked the Furos, but I gave him 2 draws. I made an IP and Requiem pass, but he had like multiple Bestials and an Impulse plus combo. I'm like, okay, I just lose, unfortunately. Nothing I can really do about that. But in game 2, we went on a full grind match. Like I went first, set up my field, and then I didn't draw any hand traps on top of it, which was kind of unfortunate, but I still set up on my field. He drew like a shit ton of Bestials, got rid of names and stuff like that, cracked my field, but couldn't kill me through it, and I already have all 3 White Rabbit in the grave and banished. I have a Chessie Cat in graveyard and a Dormouse. I have 2 Dormouse in hand, I have 2 Dormouse in hand, and I drew into a Chessie Cat, which I didn't recognize straight away because I immediately just normal summoned the Dormouse because I'm like, he has no interruption. I think he had an Obacue on field that didn't do anything because he didn't have a card in hand anyways. So I'm like, okay, I just have to play my game, right? So I normal summoned Dormouse, but I forgot I drew into the last name in deck. All 3 White Rabbits are out of the deck. All the Dormouses are counted for it, and then the second Chessie Cat I drew I'm only playing 2 Chessie Cat. One was already engraved, and I drew the second one for turn. So if I just looked at the graveyard, I could have recognized, I'm like, okay, I'm actually out of names. I normal summon Chessie Cat instead, go effective Chessie Cat, banish the Dormouse, Dormouse bring back, and that's just the 2 bodies I needed to make sure I cracked the field. He has no cards on top deck. We saw the 2 draws it was as well. It was a double Lancia that I would have drawn off the Chessie Cat, which does matter a lot because that would have just checked the game and I would have won that game. But the fact that I didn't check my graveyard and just immediately normal summon Dormouse without recognizing I just drew my other target for Dormouse makes it where I just lost because Dormouse couldn't banish anything, and the other 2 cards in my hand was Dormouse, Chessie Cat, which doesn't do anything with that. So even though I did misplay that, It was definitely a winnable game, but it was just me misplaying. And then last round, I versed Mitsuragi Rizel. And in that matchup is pretty much on whoever draws, either wins the die roll or draws the out, either Droll or Lancia, depending on the player, right? And he won the die roll and drew Lancia. So, like, there was nothing I can do in that matchup. But it was pretty unlikely for me to top at X3 anyways. I know a couple X3s slipped in, but pretty unlikely anyways. But yeah, that was my matchups. But I will end the video here because it's been going for a long time. I can see I'm at 35 minutes right now, though. Yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe for more content on the channel. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.